Presiding Officer, I welcome the opportunity to again discuss the importance of the need to dual the A9 between Perth and Inverness. Now, members will recall that it is exactly 2 weeks ago today since we last met to discuss the A9 in a parliamentary statement that I was keen to bring to the Chamber. Now, that statement updated members on the specifics of the Tomatin Tomoy tender, as we've heard from Mr Simpson, and on the original 2025 target date for completion. I undertook then, as I did in November, to work with local MSPs whose regions and constituencies are directly affected by the A9, and I will again restate that desire, having written to all MSPs just 2 weeks ago, to ensure that they are appraised of the planned next steps. Now, Mr Simpson notes in his motion the vital importance of this route to the economic and social well-being of the communities it serves, and I agree. My nana was born in a croft at Muir of Taradale outside Muir of Ord, and after nursing in Glasgow for many years, she retired to Cromarty with my grandfather. And every tatty holiday, every Easter, every summer, my mum would drive my sisters and I up the A9. And I remember my nana always insisting that my mum phoned as soon as we got back, so terrified was she as a Highlander of the A9. I know we have to dual the A9, but I also know it should have been done long ago. Before my party was elected, before this place was re-established, it's imperative that we now move forward and at pace. In my update to Parliament just 2 weeks ago, I noted that the A9 is often referred to as the spine of Scotland, linking lowland with highland and providing a vital route for the people and businesses of the north of this country. I also restated this government's unwavering commitment to deliver the benefits of completing and dualling of the A9 between Perth and Inverness to the people of Scotland. I acknowledge the ambitious timescale that was set out in 2011 was no longer achievable. It was reliant, of course, on the timely and positive outcomes of factors such as completing the statutory processes. Those processes are set out in the 1984 Roads Scotland Act. They include gaining the legal authority to acquire land on a compulsory basis as opposed to by negotiation. It also needed sufficient market capacity and sufficient supply chain availability. Presiding Officer, I think it's fair to say that a lot has changed since 2011. We all know that the pandemic has caused significant disruption across the entire country, and progress on the A9 dualling programme has not been an exception. COVID disruption in relation to the completion of the statutory processes has impacted on a number of sections. It's also impacted on the construction market and its extended supply chains. It's also one of the contributory factors that have driven the significant increase in relation to inflationary pressures. Others, of course, include the consequences of Brexit and increases in energy and other costs arising as a consequence of the war in Ukraine. I'm happy to do so.
Liam Kerr.
I'm very grateful. I hear the Minister getting the excuses in early, but listen, people are dying and being seriously injured because of these delays. What does the Minister project will be the impact of these latest delays on the A9 on the Scottish Government's Road Safety 2030 targets?
Minister.
I'm sorry, I have to say to Mr Kerr, it's not an excuse to point out some of the inflationary pressures that are being felt by the Scottish Government at the current time. And in fact, UK Government monitoring shows the material price index for work has increased by 24.1% in July 2022 compared to the same month for the previous year. Things are costing more money, and that is a fact. Mr Kerr very well understands that. I think it's also fair to reflect that I'd like to make some more progress. The wider economic environment, undoubtedly, Presiding Officer, has been extremely volatile, particularly, of course, in the immediate aftermath of the UK Government's mini-budget of September of 2022. Now, I reported to Parliament the disappointing outcome of the recent Tomatin Tomoy procurement. I'm not going to shy away from that today. We did not consider the single bid. We had one single bid, which is extremely unusual, received, provided best value to the taxpayer. Now, following that decision, Transport Scotland immediately began work towards commencement of a new procurement. And I'm pleased to report positive and constructive discussions have already been held with the construction industry as work proceeds on modifications to Transport Scotland's terms and conditions with the aim of increasing competition and delivering better value to the taxpayer. We also continue to target that contract award under the new procurement before the end of 2023. Yes, happy to do so.
Graham Simpson.
I thank the Minister for taking the intervention. I've highlighted issues with Transport Scotland, so can the Minister say what those contractual changes will be that will make the industry, make it more appealing for the industry?
Minister.
So I think Mr Simpson raises a fair point, and this was also touched upon in relation to the parliamentary statement. So Transport Scotland, who are sitting behind me at the back of the chamber, I hasten to say, are looking at the statutory processes, but they're looking at the way in which we take forward procurement. I think there are changes we will need to take forward in that respect. I'm not going to spell them out today because I'm waiting for the advice to come from Transport Scotland. I think Mr Simpson needs to also be mindful that we were in the chamber only 2 weeks ago with a week of parliamentary recess discussing this very point. So I haven't yet had that advice, but what I have committed to do is to work with local elected members, because I think that's actually really important. He might not regard that as so, but I do as Minister. Now, I'd like to make some progress, noting time, Presiding Officer. Now, in relation to the remainder of the A9 dualling programme, and as I advised in Parliament, as I say 2 weeks ago, Transport Scotland is taking forward a range of options that will advise me on the most efficient way of dualling the remaining sections. Now, that assessment will look at a range of different options. I'm mindful of time, Presiding Officer. Now, I expect to have that advice by autumn of 2023, at which time, as I stated 2 weeks ago, I will update Parliament on a new timescale for completion. I think that's a reasonable ask for the Conservatives' motion today, and I'm happy to do that. I undertook to do so only 2 weeks ago. At the same time, I'm very mindful, I have, I think, 15 seconds left. At the same time, we're also pushing forward with the work to obtain the outstanding statutory consent for the passive Burnham to Tay crossing project, and it is worth saying there is ministerial approval in place for 8 out of the 9 remaining sections. Presiding Officer, I'm mindful of time. I'm not going to pretend that dualling the A9 was ever an easy task. Clearly, a range of factors have impacted on the delivery of the original timescale, but I hope members will acknowledge my willingness to work with them to ensure that we bring about the full benefits of dualling as quickly and as efficiently as possible for the people of the Highlands of Scotland.
Must conclude, Minister.
I move the amendment in my name.
Thank you.